students, today we will continue with physics, that is calorimetry. Last time we had stopped at specific heat capacity. The word includes the word specific. So there we said that water has very high specific heat capacity, and then we had seen some 6 or 7 applications or uses of high specific heat capacity of water. So that we had done last time. Now we come to a new term, that is thermal capacity or just heat capacity. Thermal means heat. So thermal capacity, another word for it is heat capacity. Now this is different from specific heat capacity. The definition is also slightly different. Specific heat capacity was denoted by small c. This is denoted by capital C dash. So this is capital C dash denoting heat capacity or thermal capacity. Definition, in this definition there is no mention of unit mass. So in specific heat capacity we have said it is the quantity of heat absorbed or released by a body so that its temperature increases or decreases for unit mass of that substance by 1 degree Celsius. So we had used the term unit mass there. Now here that unit mass is not there, rest of the definition is same. The amount, the heat capacity or thermal capacity of a body is the amount of heat energy required to raise the temperature by 1 degree Celsius or 1 Kelvin. So we are not telling to heat the body 1 kg of body by 1 degree Celsius or unit mass by 1 degree Celsius or 1 Kelvin. We are telling here is the amount of heat required to heat the entire body, whatever may be its mass, by 1 degree Celsius or 1 Kelvin. So obviously, greater the mass, more will be the thermal capacity, because more mass will require more heat. So note there is no mention of the word unit mass in this definition of thermal capacity or heat capacity. Unit mass is there in the definition of specific heat capacity, so that one word difference and you will get 0 because it means some other quantity. Heat capacity from this formula, what is the definition? It's the amount of heat energy required to raise the temperature of the entire body by 1 degree Celsius. So C dash is amount of heat supplied upon rise in temperature. Amount of heat supplied is Q and rise in temperature is delta T. So C dash is Q upon delta T. So SI unit of heat capacity is Joule upon Kelvin. That's the SI unit of heat capacity. It is Joule upon Kelvin. Other units include, see, SI unit when it is asked you have to write Kelvin only, you can't write degree Celsius. And SI unit of heat is Joule. So it is Joule upon Kelvin. Other units you can write calorie per Kelvin, Joule per degree Celsius, calorie per kilocalorie per Kelvin. All those are other units. But usually when they ask you to specify, they ask you specifically SI unit or CGS unit. So if they ask you CGS unit, what will be CGS unit? It will be erg. Joule ke badle erg. For heat energy, any energy, it is erg. Erg upon Kelvin. But usually in heat, we never use erg. So that is why they will mostly ask what is SI unit. So SI unit is Joule upon Kelvin. Now in this formula, C dash is Q upon delta T. If we substitute the original formula of Q, which was the first thing we learned in this chapter, factors affecting quantity of heat absorbed by body. Q is equal to M into C into delta T. Mass, specific heat capacity and rising temperature. So instead of that, if you write MC delta T upon delta T, then delta T and delta T will cancel and you will get C dash is MC. C dash is MC means heat capacity or thermal capacity is equal to mass into specific heat capacity. Small c is specific heat capacity. So capital C dash is equal to M into C. So in sums, you will have two different formulae. One is C dash is MC or the second formula C dash is Q upon delta T. Obviously, Based on what is given, you will use that particular formula, either this or this, to find the thermal capacity or heat capacity. So C dash is either Q upon delta T, or you can use MC. Basically, the first one is the original definition, that is the heat capacity of a body is the amount of heat energy required to raise the temperature by 1 degree Celsius. So rise in temperature, heat upon rise in temperature, and there is no mention of unit mass. So now we'll proceed and see some uses of high and low thermal capacity of a body. Now we will see three examples based on high and low thermal heat capacity. The first example is, why is the base of a frying pan or a cooking pan made heavy? The base is made heavy whenever you hear the word heavy or light and it is related with heat chapter. Then you have to know the answer relates to thermal capacity or heat capacity. We have seen the 7 applications of specific heat capacity. So thermal capacity, you will be using the word thin or heavy in the answer. So in this case, the base of the frying pan is made heavy so that its mass, that is its thermal capacity, increases. So it has to absorb a lot of heat before its temperature rises. So that is why the temperature will rise very slowly, even though it is absorbing a lot of heat. So if the temperature rises very fast, what will happen? The food will get burnt. So that is why you are using frying pan, otherwise you could have just thrown all the food on the fire. But that is not possible, because then everything will get burnt. So to prevent that, you have a heavy base so that it absorbs large amount of heat without its temperature rising sharply. So the food will get evenly cooked and not get burnt. Similarly, once you stop the fire and leave it there, it will remain warm for a longer time. Why? Because in this give reason you have to mention the important word high thermal capacity due to large mass. So here the answer is given, the base of a frying pan is made thick and heavy. This increases the mass, due to which the thermal capacity increases. C dash is equal to MC. So mass is increased, so thermal capacity increases. Hence the base of the frying pan, due to its high thermal capacity, will absorb a large amount of heat without its temperature rising sharply. So the food will get cooked evenly and will not get burned. Also, the food will remain warm for a longer time. Now, another similar give reason based on that itself is, the base of the iron, the electric iron box, is also made heavy. This is done again to increase the thermal capacity. What will happen if you take a thin piece of iron, extremely thin piece of iron, heat it and put it on the cloth? That iron will be extremely high temperature because its mass is less. So as soon as you put it on a cloth, there will be a line and a hole which comes on the cloth. The cloth will get burnt, because it is not being given that required temperature, it is given a very high temperature. It requires some heat, but the temperature has to be maintained. Here, the base of the electric iron box is made thick and heavy to increase its thermal capacity. So these words are the key words which I have underlined, it should be there in the answer. So the iron box will absorb a large amount of heat without its temperature rising sharply, and so the cloth will not get burnt. Also, once you switch off the iron box, it will remain hot or warm for a longer period of time. So even without using so much electricity, once it is adequately warm, you can iron a couple of cloths and then again on it. A third one. Now till now these two give reasons was why the mass was more. Now sometimes the mass has to be kept very low, so that the substance or that particle has, that object has a very low thermal capacity. If the thermal capacity is very low, then in that case what happens? In that case, it will absorb the heat very fast and its temperature will rise very fast. So now next after this you will be seeing a calorimeter, which is an instrument by which you perform heat measurement experiments. So that calorimeter vessel is made up of copper. That vessel is made up of copper, and it is made very thin. Copper, because copper is a good conductor and copper has low specific heat capacity. That gives reason we will see when we draw the calorimeter. But it is made thin so that the thermal capacity or heat capacity is very low. So what happens? Whatever is poured inside it, let's say something very hot is poured inside the calorimeter. Immediately the calorimeter vessel, which is thin, will absorb very little heat and its temperature will rise up. So immediately it will attain the temperature of its contents. So that in this give reason you have to mention the word low thermal capacity and explain that it will absorb very little heat and its temperature will rise fast. So the copper vessel used in a calorimeter is made thin so that it has a low thermal capacity, full stop. So by absorbing very less heat from its contents, its temperature will rise fast and the vessel will take up the temperature of its contents. That is what it is supposed to do, so that it immediately attains the temperature of whatever is put inside it. So there, calorimeter vessel made thin. That thin word is important in explaining low thermal capacity. When you see the word thin, is very important. Please note all this down in your notebook. We continue, we will see the construction, the figure of a calorimeter. So now we will see the distinguishing between heat capacity and specific heat capacity. Very simple. First is heat capacity. There is no mention of unit mass. It is the amount of heat energy required to raise the temperature of the entire body by 1 degree Celsius. Whereas specific heat capacity, you mention unit mass. So it is the amount of heat energy required to raise the temperature of unit mass of the body by 1 degree Celsius. So very small distinction between the two. Here thermal capacity or heat capacity is entire body, and heat capacity or specific heat capacity, when the word specific comes, specific heat capacity would mean unit mass. Now here the formula you can say C dash is equal to MC. So thermal capacity or heat capacity depends on the mass. Greater the mass, more is the heat capacity. Specific heat capacity, like density, is a characteristic of a substance or material. So it is different for copper, it is different for water, it is different for lead. Different substances have different specific heat capacity. It does not depend on mass. Whether you take 1 liter of water or 100 liters of water, the specific heat capacity value will be same, 4.2 joule upon gram degree Celsius. So that doesn't change. So specific heat capacity does not depend on mass, whereas thermal capacity depends on mass. And the third distinction you can say is the unit. In heat capacity, it is joule upon Kelvin. In specific heat capacity, it is joule upon kg Kelvin. That too because of the basic formula that C dash is Q upon delta T, amount of heat required upon the rising temperature. So there is no unit mass here. So it is the entire body, so there is no kg here. Whereas there, Q is equal to mc delta T. So C will be Q upon m delta T. So Q is joule, m is kg, and delta T is Kelvin. So that is why the units are also different. The distinction between heat capacity or specific heat capacity is very important. They may not directly ask you the distinction, but they can ask you the units of both. Sometimes they ask you, is specific heat capacity depending on the mass? So you have to say no, it depends only on the material. Does thermal capacity depend on the mass? Yes. Greater the mass, more will be the thermal capacity. Heat capacity is also called thermal capacity. Here the only extra word is specific. Now we go on to the next part, that is calorimeter. See, you can see the diagram. The diagram has been asked 2 or 3 board exams. So you have to learn the diagram. This diagram has to be labeled properly. This is just a stand holding a thermometer. So you have a thermometer, a stirrer which is also made of copper. Then there is a wooden lid. So this is just a wooden lid. This is a wooden jacket, and in between the wooden jacket and inside there is a copper vessel. So between the copper vessel and wooden jacket there is wool which is used as an insulation. So we will see the use of all of this next. In this everything has a use. For example, the wooden lid that is used to prevent the loss of heat by convection. You have learned convection, the air rises, the heat rises. So when the thing is hot, when a hot liquid is put inside, or if a hot iron ball is put inside water and you are measuring the exchange of heat, then in that case the heat that rises up, it's escaping to the surrounding is prevented by using the wooden lid. Convection currents rise. Then inside you have insulation to prevent the loss of heat by radiation as well, by to prevent the loss of heat by conduction. And third mode of transfer of heat is radiation. To prevent the loss of heat by radiation, this copper vessel, inner surface and outer surface of the copper vessel is kept highly polished, because you have learned polished or metallic polished surfaces are good reflectors of heat. So they reflect the heat back inside the system and they do not let the heat to escape to the surroundings. So the copper vessel is highly polished. So basically you have to label all the parts, the copper vessel, the wool insulation inside between the wooden jacket and the copper vessel, the wooden lid. The stirrer is also made of copper, and when you weigh the calorimeter, empty calorimeter, only this copper vessel with stirrer is weighed, because that is the only thing that will gain or lose heat. They are the copper, and copper is the only good conductor. Other all are insulators, so you don't weigh the wooden jacket and the wool and the wooden lid, all that is not weighed. Neither is the thermometer weighed. The empty vessel that is copper with the stirrer is weighed. So here, use of calorimeter. The diagram is important, draw it and practice it. Calorimeter is used to measure the amount of heat gained or lost by a body when it is mixed with another body. So generally what you do inside in the lab and experiments is, this is quite like a thermos flask, but it is not a thermos flask, it is used in laboratory. So here what you do, inside you take water which is generally at normal room temperature, maybe 30 degrees Celsius. Let's say you have a metal ball which is made of lead, and you have to perform an experiment and find what is the specific heat capacity of that metal ball made of lead. So what is the specific heat capacity of lead? You have to find the answer. So you take a predetermined quantity of water at room temperature, let's say 35 degrees Celsius, and you heat the lead ball to a very high temperature. Maybe you heat the lead ball to 80 degrees Celsius or 90 degrees Celsius in an oven, and after that, after noting its temperature, you immediately put it inside the water and then you stir it. So what will happen inside this, there is water and there will be the hot lead ball. So there is a principle of heat exchange which says that heat lost by the hot metal ball, the hot body, will be equal to the heat gained by the cold body. In this case, water and calorimeter will gain heat till all of them attain thermal equilibrium, that means the same final temperature. So the temperature of the hot metal ball will fall down and the temperature of water inside the calorimeter along with the calorimeter will rise till they all attain the same final temperature, and once thermal equilibrium is attained, that means same final temperature is attained, then there will be no more transfer of heat. There will be neither heat loss nor heat gain. So there will be no transfer of heat after that. So for that, we have to have a setup where there is no loss of heat to the surroundings. So that is why all this wooden jacket, wooden lid and wool insulation and all is used to prevent the transfer of heat to the escape of heat to the surroundings, and same way surrounding heat should not enter the system. So to make it an insulated system, you are using the calorimeter. So calorimeter is used to measure the amount of heat gained or lost by a body when it is mixed with another body. Two different bodies at different temperatures mixed. So now another important question that is asked in the exam is, the vessel of the calorimeter is made thin and it is made of copper. Why is this made thin? We had earlier seen, so that its thermal capacity is low and it immediately takes up the temperature of its contents. So now if it is asked copper also, then both have to be explained. You have to explain why thin and why copper. Now for copper, copper is a good conductor, number one, and copper has low specific heat capacity, so it will immediately take up the temperature of its contents. And thin because by making it thin or keeping its mass low, the heat capacity is low. So by absorbing very little amount of heat from inside the system, it will immediately take up the temperature of its contents. So that's the answer. That answer is very important. Copper is a good conductor of heat and it has very low specific heat capacity, and so it absorbs less heat and shows high rise in temperature. Second point, by making it thin, its thermal capacity will be low, and so it will immediately take up the temperature of its contents. So both those points have to be explained when you are explaining why thin and why copper. Copy all this including the diagram. All diagrams asked in your exam should be neatly drawn with pencil and ruler, no pen. And only shading should be done, no red color or green color anything. Just shade it and label it properly. Diagrams come for 2 marks. So copy down the diagram and practice it. Diagrams with pencil and ruler, no pen. So first one's question which we have already discussed now. How does the calorimeter prevent exchange of heat with the surroundings? There are 3 methods of transfer of heat: convection, conduction and radiation. So convection is the rising of heat. The hot air rises. So the wooden lid prevents the escape of heat by convection. Second point, the wooden jacket with the wool insulation will prevent the loss of heat by conduction due to direct touch and transfer of heat. And the outer and the inner surfaces of the copper vessel is highly polished to prevent the loss of heat by radiation. So if they ask you how heat transfer is prevented by using a calorimeter to keep the system thermally insulated, then you will mention all these 3 points. That is convection, for that you have wooden lid. For conduction prevention, you have wooden jacket with wool insulation and highly polished inner and outer surfaces of the copper vessel to prevent loss of heat by radiation. Now we come on to another important topic, that is principle of calorimetry or principle of method of mixtures. See, basically what happens is, as I explained in that calorimeter how transfer of heat takes place, you have a hot body, like I told you, a lead ball, a metallic lead ball whose mass is known, was initially heated to maybe a high temperature of 90 or 80 degrees Celsius, is taken and that is put in the calorimeter which contains water. So let's say normally, without any calorimeter. First we are seeing it without any calorimeter. Let's say you take hot water and pour it in a bucket which contains cold water. So hot water will lose heat and cold water will gain heat till it attains a uniform temperature. And to ensure that the entire water is at the same temperature, you use a stirrer, or you may put your hand and just stir the water so that it is not hot on top and cold below, or vice versa. So now here the principle of method of mixture states that when a hot body is mixed or kept in contact with a cold body, heat energy passes from hot body to cold body till both the bodies attain the same final temperature. So both the bodies have to attain the same final temperature. Till then, heat energy will pass from hot body to cold body. The same thing is written here. Heat loss by hot body is equal to heat gain by cold body. Of course, condition is there should be no loss of heat to the surroundings. Of course, in a bucket that doesn't happen, but when you do numericals, you will see that sometimes calorimeter is not mentioned, only hot body and cold body is mentioned, and they ask you what is the assumption made. The assumption made is that there is no loss of heat to the surroundings. So in that case, heat lost by hot body is given, heat energy Q is given by the formula mc delta T. So in this case there is loss of heat, so there is a fall in temperature. You are taking m1 c1 delta theta fall, where m1 is mass of hot body, c1 is specific heat capacity of the hot body. Fall in temperature will be T1 minus T, where T1 is the initial temperature, hot temperature, and T is the final temperature of everything. Everything means we talked about a lead ball, a lead metallic ball dropped in a calorimeter containing water. So if that lead was at 80 degrees Celsius and let's say the final temperature is 40, then the fall in temperature is 80 minus 40. So that will be 80 minus 40 here. And there heat gained by cold body is again heat equation is mc delta T. So mc delta T will have m2 c2 delta T. Now here it is cold body would be that water. Water inside the calorimeter, specific heat capacity of that water, whichever cold body, it is not necessary it has to be water, it can be any liquid, and T minus T2. Now that water's initial temperature was only 35 and final temperature of all the substances is 40. So 40 minus 35 like that. Of course, see this you have to learn this because right now we are doing the theory. When you do the numericals, that time this concept would be much better understood. So whenever you do the numericals now after this, so then you will understand the concept of calorimetry and method of exchange of mixtures much better. So here M2 is mass of the cold body, C2 is specific heat capacity of cold body, T is final temperature of all the mixture, means hot body, cold body, everything. Because I told you in method of mixtures the final temperature is constant and therefore T2 was the initial temperature of cold body. So obviously this T1 would be greater than the final temperature T, and it will be final temperature T will be more than that of the initial temperature of the cold body T2. So the fall in temperature is T1 minus T and the rise in temperature is T minus T2. So that has to be properly written. If they ask you statement only, then you will write this. You will write this and you also mention provided no heat loss happens to the surroundings. And if they ask you to give an expression when two bodies are mixed together, then you will not only write this, but you will write these statements and show this equation and then write and explain each term involved in the expression. So this method of mixtures or heat exchange is important, and along with the statement write this, that provided there is no heat loss to the surroundings. Please copy all this down in your notebooks. Calorimeter is used to prevent the loss of heat to the surroundings while doing the experiment of method of mixtures. So we need to take into account the mass and specific heat capacity of the calorimeter and heat lost and gained by the calorimeter. So for that, we assume that firstly we are assuming that initially you have poured the cold body inside the calorimeter. So initial temperature of calorimeter will be same as the temperature of whatever is there inside it. If it is hot body, then it is hot body. But now we have assumed it is cold body. So let's say that the cold body's initial temperature was T2 degrees Celsius. So then the calorimeter's temperature also initially will be T2 only. Whatever is there inside the calorimeter will take up the temperature of its contents immediately because it is thin and it is made of copper. So now we have to take three things and not two things while making the heat exchange equation. So first hot body, cold body, and this cold body is there inside the calorimeter. Mass, hot body M1, specific heat capacity C1, and initial temperature of hot body is T1 degree Celsius. Cold body mass was M2, specific heat capacity C2, and initial temperature is T2. So because this is T2, calorimeter will also have the same temperature because here I have written that calorimeter will take up the temperature of its contents. And calorimeter is copper, so its mass will be different and its specific heat capacity would be different. So we are assuming T degrees Celsius is the final temperature of all of them. Heat exchange is based on the principle that heat loss by hot body is equal to heat gained by cold body, and this happens till all of them attain the same final temperature and assuming no heat is lost to the surroundings. So heat lost by this hot body will be equal to heat gained by cold body and heat gained by calorimeter. So now it is not just the cold body, these both were at the same temperature, so both of them will gain heat. So this is M1 C1 delta theta fall in temperature. Here it is M2 C2 delta theta rise in temperature, and for calorimeter also it is M3 C3 delta theta rise in temperature. So fall in temperature is from T1 to T, the final temperature. So T1 minus T, and rise in temperature for both of them will be T minus T2. So this expression you have to write when calorimeter is also taken into account, and when you do sums in which calorimeter's details are given, then you have to take this expression, you can't ignore the calorimeter. Previous expression was when no mention of calorimeter or vessel is given. So now here, sometimes they ask you to write the expression for C1, that is specific heat capacity of the hot body. In that case, you can't leave it here. This expression has to be rewritten in terms of only C1. In that case, you will say this. You take T minus T2 common out, M2 C2 plus M3 C3, and the other terms M1 and T1 minus T, you write it at the denominator. So we will stop there for today and we will continue in the next class.